First count. Let's open up the Escada City Council workshop. Call to order. So you want to, are we gonna do roll call on this one? Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Counselor Blevins.
Here.
Counselor Dolezal.
Here.
Counselor McElroy.
Here.
Counselor Metcalf.
Here.
Counselor Prokop. Here. Counselor Tenbush.
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine.
Here. Thank you very much for that. All right. So the wastewater treatment plant project, we've got you both here. We're excited to hear from you. So I would just hand it right over to you and you can start the process.
Well, yeah, we'll just hand it over to you, Sean and Eric. You will have to use that microphone so that folks on Zoom and so for our recording, we can hear you. And this is kind of just an intermediate checkup because they will be coming back to you with more information. But it's been November since you all connected and were able to ask questions. And so I felt like this was a good time for an update and because we've made a lot of progress. So I will let you guys take it over.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Sean Spargo. I'm with Kennedy Jenks. I've been here a couple times. This is Eric Bramer. He's with Sladen Constructors. I think the last time we saw you, we were talking about the 60% design. We've since finished the 90% and we prepared kind of a slide deck with a 3D rendering of the site. There's some landscape concepts that we want to share, but we could probably put the slide deck up there and I can run through what we put together.
Okay.
You could skip that one. So this is a 3D rendering of the site. So if you're standing in Portal Park and you're looking at the river, this is kind of what you would see if you were standing on the roof of the restroom, right? You're up pretty high in the air, but I just wanted to give you a sense of the improvements. And I did not bring a laser pointer, but I can get up and kind of show you how it goes.
You have a
And
laser pointer.
we were all there. Oh, we have one?
Yeah.
Just travel.
Double check. Yeah, you can just,
Yep, turn it on the side, the laser pointer.
I think she did.
Yep.
Look at that.
There we go.
So we were all out there for the staking, so we kind of understand what the layout is, but this is a reduced parking lot, and then we've got some landscape screening that we've sort of envisioned out here in the front and a little more off to the side of the entry gate, which is here. So the existing trail wraps around. We're not changing that substantially. The flow from the old treatment plant comes into this headwork. So we've got screening here. It's our primary treatment. From there, it goes into a pump station, which is just behind the fence here. Gets pumped up into the MBR. And this provides secondary treatment, reduces the wastewater strength, and then filters in the back. And then that filtered effluent goes through UV disinfection in this building that's kind of hard to make out behind the tank. And then it goes out to the river. And then there are some other improvements related to solids. So solids that we're wasting off of this secondary process get stored in this tank. We're calling it the aerobic digester. Gets aerated. That reduces the odors. It also reduces the amount of solids because they continue to break down in this tank that we have to dewater and haul off site. And this building is sort of three purposes. It houses that dewatering equipment, houses dumpsters for the dewatered solids. So it's pulling solids off the digester, removing a lot of the liquid, and then making it so that you can put it in a dumpster and haul it off the site. In the middle of the building, there's an electrical room. And then on the end of the room or building, there's a shop with 2 roll-up doors. This structure here is for odor control. So this will be filled with a wood chip and sand media. And all the air is drawn off of the solids building and the headworks where we are storing the dumpster. And there's a small building here with a roll-up door. So that's treating the odors from that. And then a new prefabricated admin building kind of on the right here. So those are the improvements in a nutshell.
I like it. Very clean design.
Thanks. So there are some considerations when it comes to landscaping. This was, like, you can go to the next slide. So we'd like to give you kind of an update on where we're at in terms of design. some of the project milestones that are coming up. And then I'll show you these options that we've got for on-site storage to kind of increase the amount of parking that's available within the footprint of the plant site and what impact that has on the landscaping. And then Eric's going to talk a little bit about the open house that we had here and the bidder outreach that we did. Then we'll highlight maybe some areas of concern on pricing if we get that far. So next slide. So
Okay, so, sorry, didn't mean to yell at you. So we wanted to walk through kind of the timeline of what you can expect moving forward. So looking back at October is when we executed the early work amendment 1 for the long lead equipment. That was to buy the pieces of equipment that had a long enough lead time that we had to buy them before we started construction. So that was your main MBR treatment equipment technology, the electrical service gear, and the generator, because all those had multi-year lead times. So that work is under contract and we're progressing into submittals. So that's going well. Like Sean said, the 90% design was completed in January, and that has been submitted to DEQ for review and approval. So that's currently where we sit. Is DEQ has approved all of our bid packages and all the procurement documents, but we are waiting on them to review the technical documents. They have 2 different people at DEQ that review the documents. One is to make sure we're meeting all the obligations for procurement, and the other side is the guy who actually reviews the KJ design for the technical, is this going to do what it says it's going to do? So we do expect that approval back soon. I was going to say any day now, but we don't actually have a time. Okay, so sometime this month, we expect approval back. When we get that approval on the technical design, which we expect soon, we'll be able to push the job out to bid. So we're tentatively slating putting it out to bid in about a week or 2, and then that would go out for a 4-week bid period. After we get bids back, about 4 weeks later, it's going to take us a couple weeks to go through it because we're going to receive hundreds of bids. We have to review them all. KJ will have to go through some of the bids for technical review if there's any clarifications before we can put it all together and present it to the city. So we're tentatively targeting the 6/9 council meeting for a workshop, so we can sit down and walk through everything with all of you. And then we had talked about whether or not approval would be appropriate at that meeting, or if we would come to the subsequent meeting for approvals on the 23rd. So I'm assuming that depends on what we present to you. Final design we completed in June, which will be right around the time that we would expect to be contracting. And then, DEQ also needs to approve, DEQ EPA need to approve all the environmental permitting, which is currently slated for September, October. We wrote September up here because we're being very optimistic. Not very optimistic, appropriately optimistic. And then we'd mobilize as soon as that's approved. So if we contract the job at the end of June, there's a couple months worth of planning time. We have to write all the subcontracts, purchase orders, start planning the job before we can mobilize. So it times out well, a couple months worth of planning, and then DEQ, EPA approve the permits, and we can mobilize in September or hopefully October at the latest. The last line item on there you're going to see is a new date. The compliance for the MAO with DEQ, the current date is not going to be achievable. I think that is hopefully not a surprise to anybody. We've been working hard and making good progress, and DEQ is understanding of that, and the city has approached DEQ about the fact that we are going to need an extension. We have not submitted for the extension because typically we wait until we know the exact date, because you don't want to ask for an extension more than once. So when the GMP is executed, we'll have all the bids, we'll have all the durations, we'll have a formal schedule that Sladen will guarantee that we will meet that schedule completion date. And at that point, the city will know what date they need to ask for from DEQ for the new compliance deadline. I'm gonna pause there. You guys want to ask any questions, or should we just keep going?
You have an estimate for the extension that we're anticipating?
The duration of the extension, or?
I mean, that December 2027 is the estimate. Right now,
Yes.
Yeah,
it's,
okay, gotcha.
right now it's September 2026.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
it push it out just over a year. Part of that has been the kind of some of the issues we ran into with the permitting and the FERC and now it's at NOAA. And so a lot of those federal permits took a lot longer than anticipated when we started on the process.
That's the estimated ask. And you'll have you're gonna fine tune it though. The
Yeah.
2000 December. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, our current schedule is showing that December 27 date, but we need to finalize it when we get the actual bids in. The rest of our bids will come with their, stated lead times, and we'll plug all those into the schedule, and then we'll come up with a final date. But we don't anticipate that to move substantially. I think that's a reasonable date to be using right now, is the end of 27.
All right, any other questions here before it moves on? Okay, go ahead.
What's next?
So this is just sort of a site plan, and this is the one out of the 90%. And I just wanted to highlight. So we do have that landscape screening that you can see in the 3D model, and it's kind of represented by these two areas here. These are the actual plantings in here, and then there's a biobasin behind it, which takes all the stormwater and treats it from the parking lot before it puts it in the outfall and sends it to the river. One option at Chris Lewis had requested some additional storage on site. We were brainstorming about ideas to get him that. If you go to the next slide, the current landscape design is on the left here. So there's the landscaped area I was talking about. With the checkers is the bioswale. Additional planting over here on the left. There's some tall trees in there that we try to represent in the model. There's some shorter trees and bushes that provide some sort of concealment for the tank. That kind of once they mature, but they won't be mature right out of the gate. So you are going to see the tank from the parking lot. Chris's idea maybe was to put some more gravel in here so that he could park additional equipment, have some on-site storage for laydown for spare equipment. But that would push the swale kind of to the north, and then we're starting to kind of create a choke point here for turning of large vehicles in here. And then one option would be to keep the landscaping in play. It would take up more of the kind of RV spots, the longer spots that are out in that parking lot. Another option would be to put landscaping along the road. That's a little more robust than what we'd planned. We were just going to put, I think there's 1 or 2 ponderosa pines back here, and we could choose any tree species, but that's what our landscaper is showing at this point, these two here. So those are the kind of options. And then what does it look like from the ground would be on the next slide. As accurate as the model would be, it's kind of hard to see, but here's the taller trees in front of the tank. Here's some of the shorter trees and bushes out in front. If you were much taller, or if you were standing on a ladder, it would look like the next slide, just to kind of give it some perspective. So you can see the landscaping a little bit better. These kind of represent what is a ponderosa pine tree relative to the tank kind of at maturity. Maybe this is the 10 or 15 year mark. So doesn't completely hide the tank, obviously. So if we did the additional storage, do we feel that we need to add landscaping, I guess, more landscaping along the road? Or should we just kind of leave it the way it is and Chris can park stuff across the street is sort of the decision point here?
How long did it take for the smaller plants to fill out?
I
Smaller, I don't know if those are trees or bushes, the 3 little ones in between the big ones, are those?
would say like less than 5 years on the bushes. I'd probably 2 or 3. And then these container plants,
Would they be a
perennials
wall
and-
at that point? The bushes, would they be continuous or would there be still gaps?
there'd still be gaps. I mean, this is pretty accurate per the planting plan. So I can't zoom in on this picture, obviously, but there is still space in between, right? And he's planned room for them to continue to grow and kind of fill in, but
Those going to go in at the very end of the project? Or are they going to go at the beginning so they can begin to mature
at the end of the
in
project,
the project? Okay.
yeah, the pump station's right behind it. So we have to kind of get the concrete in and get everything backfilled.
John?
Yeah, have you done any cost comparisons to see what ordering maybe a more mature cherry would cost? I know you could purchase stuff that's further along, right? Have we done any side-by-side comparisons? What's that increase? I mean, when I look at that, I like where you're trying to go with this, but 15 years is a long time for a community to wait to cover up something that they don't want to look at in the beginning.
Yeah, right. No, we haven't done any cost comparisons, but we certainly could, and we could bring you that
Yeah,
information.
I would like to see that, please. If we're talking a couple grand, then it'd be silly not to.
Sure.
Quick question. Is that, it's hard to tell, does that fence have slats in it or is it just like a regular cyclone? I can't really tell.
The way we've specified it, it would have slots in it. So it's,
Okay.
I think, a 6-foot fence.
Okay.
So that portion of it would be obscured, right? Like the plastic privacy slots that you see.
Mhm.
So a black fence with the black privacy slots is what we're specifying. What this model doesn't portray is there's kind of a ground slope, right? So if you're standing on the ground here, you can kind of see into the plant because it's downhill, right? And the model assumes it's flat, so that's not a very good perspective, but that's the reality.
It helps to have that view though, because it kind of can make you think about it a little bit more, I think. Like, what do we need to do there to make it look less obtrusive, maybe?
Sure, and we could add more mature trees, we could add more plantings. We could widen that landscaped area.
I like the idea of more concealment, more bushes and trees in there to just conceal it more. Is there a SRI benefit, like, is there a benefit to the lid on the digester being white as opposed to everything else is dark and kind of blends in, and then that white lid on that, is there just like a solar reflectivity that is benefiting, the digester is benefiting from it being white as opposed to darker?
Not really, I mean, they're usually like a mill finish aluminum,
Oh, gotcha.
so it is kind of shiny. We could specify it with a coating to,
No, I didn't realize, I thought it was painted, like a white paint on there or something, but if that's just the natural look of it, then.
okay.
So I think part of the question is, we could increase the landscaping facing the other side of where the restrooms are now. And so from the highway, you would see less.
They'd be further
Could
away.
be
from-
further away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an option that we can increase the landscaping there. So you're in your parking lot, you're still gonna see this, but from the highway or coming into it, you'd see less. And that's an option.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that as well. My question, just for clarity, you were saying something about him having to park across the way. How would that affect that to do this plan?
Uh,
Like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand what,
Well, if you go back a slide, if that's possible, one more. We could choose to come out this far with the landscaping. And if we didn't do the gravel, we could leave the swale kind of where it is here, right? You could see that it's moved up to page. So if we left the swale in this location, we could come out wider with the landscaping and provide more concealment. Right, and then Chris would lose this gravel area inside the fence, but then you need to have the existing treatment plant in some fashion where you could store stuff. Granted, it may or may not be secured at some point if you choose to convert it to a park.
how much like parking space, do we have square footage on that? You know, what was the intent in that? Is that like semi truck and trailer? I mean, what?
Yeah, you could park a couple of vehicles here, probably 3 or 4. I mean, it's 140 feet long and it's 14 feet wide.
I do think like storage is important, right? Like I don't want to negate all of that, but I'm like the community's been pretty clear as far as I've been a part of the process anyway, that we really don't want to see it. That was the biggest complaint, is that it's ugly. Is it going to
Concealment is
smell? Is
always
it going to
an issue,
stink?
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, is there alternative option here where we could do both, kind of maybe the more mature trees and like half of the gravel or something? I don't, you know, is there?
Yeah, that's kind of why we were thinking if we could increase the landscaping on the other side of the current restrooms. So you're gonna see less from the highway, you'll see less coming into it, but once you get in the parking lot, you'll see more because the gravel will have taken up some of that landscaping space. So really, it's just impacting once you get in the parking lot there.
Would that front end past the bathrooms be included in this actual construction, or would that be on us to accommodate?
We
We
could
could put
include
it in
it
the
in
scope,
construction,
yeah.
in the
Okay.
construction. I mean, we do have some plantings out here. I think these are the ponderosas, I believe. No, that's the ponderosas, 1, 2, and then I think that these are maples.
With the cost comparisons and stuff like that, I think it would be when we get all that information, it'll be easier to see what we could do there too, you know?
Seems like the extra storage would be great. We just need to figure out how to economize that and then also
Yeah.
do the screening in some way. We can talk about that on Thursday, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and if there's a desire to get the plants growing sooner than later, I mean, that landscaping out by the road isn't in the construction zone, so it could be done sooner. There's a couple of things we have to trench through there, like the power, but we could plan around that, and those could be planted at the beginning of the job and have, 2 years of growth on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Great
that.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That was really all we had to bring forward. If you skip ahead maybe 3 slides, and then Eric will talk a little bit about the bidder outreach that we did.
Yeah, so since we met last time, we worked with Counselor McElroy to identify local contractors in this area that might be interested in the project that aren't in our normal type of industrial vendors that do treatment plants all day, every day. So we identified 28 local firms that we did outreach to, called, emailed, talked to them about what they might be interested on the job. And then out of that, we also held a public outreach meeting here, actually in this room, on the 19th, in which we invited everybody we talked to. And then the city also posted flyers, and I'm sure a lot of you saw. So we had that meeting here in these chambers. We had 8 firms that showed up to talk to us. I was hoping for a little more, but 8 was pretty good also. So it was good. They came, they talked to us. We had sets of prints that aren't publicly available yet. So we were able to kind of talk to them about what type of scopes they'd be interested in, point to a few drawings with them. And so gauge their interest in the project and what we can do to get them interested in bidding. So from now, it's basically everybody has to wait until the jobs are the plans are publicly available. So we've got the list of everybody we've talked to, both in the outreach, virtually, and that came to the meeting. That'll get copies of the plans when they're published. And then they'll have the opportunity to bid on the project, same as everybody else. It'll be advertised in the DJC, kind of the industry publication. It can be posted on the city's website again, that's available, so that anybody in the market that's interested can download and review the prints. And at that time, we'll walk through the job with anybody who's interested. And if they have questions, we've got like 10 people working on the job to answer questions and make sure that anybody who wants to bid on the job can bid on the job. So, yeah, we just put a snip of the sign-in sheet up there. Everybody's got different handwriting though, so I don't expect you to be able to read that.
Mhm.
So,
It was great though. And it was great to have the folks come who help with like certified payroll and can answer questions like that. Cause some of the smaller companies out here have not done that before. And it does seem like a headache and a lot of extra work. But when you can talk with somebody to kind of work your way through it, and they help you get the first one done, and then it's kind of a template, you go forward. And I think it just kind of brought it back down to like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
And so it was a good outreach event.
Well, I'm just happy to see locals on there. I know everybody on that list,
Mhm.
so that excites me.
Yeah.
yeah, and those are just the people that showed up in person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was optional, so we said, hey, if you want to come talk to us, we'll be here. And
Yeah.
glad people took us up on it. Some
I'm
people
happy to see
said,
that.
I'm excited to bid your job. I don't need to come talk to you. So it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine also.
Yeah.
So, and I missed the top bullet there. So the job is currently scoped into 53 bid packages. So
Okay.
that's what's going to be put out on the street, the full set of drawings and specs, and there's 53 packages to bid on. So
Good.
And if somebody wants to make their own custom package, that's certainly acceptable as well. They just gotta, we'll talk about what they want to bid.
Okay.
Don't know what the next slide. That's it.
So that's what you have today. I think that's really nice. What you put out here, it's a clean project. It's good to see. The plantings and everything, I'm sure we'll get more into detail on that front end, but I do think concealment at the beginning is a smart idea. So that makes sense to, start earlier than the actual finished product, to get those things in the ground and established. So I'm happy with what we've seen tonight. Has everybody got any questions or comments they'd like to make? No?
One quick question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
After how soon will we know the updated cost estimate?
Yeah. My question.
So once we put it out to bid, that 4-week bid period, and then we'll have 2 weeks to evaluate bids, at which point we can share preliminary results.
Okay, good. Good. Well, we appreciate you coming out tonight.
Mhm.
You did a great job. I think you answered our immediate questions. And I'm looking forward to going forward on this. It looks like everything's in play, so we'll wait to see what you come up with, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
So
Thanks for
we'll-
having us.
And I would just add that we're tentatively, like Eric had said, thinking of June 9th to come back with that, the full package to say, hey, this is the GMP, guaranteed maximum price, this is what it is. If we're, if these people are gonna be bidding this job, they're bidding on something, they might not do work for a year, right? Because we're looking at a 2-year project, and so it's hard to know how it's coming back. Still thinking real positively that we're gonna get some good bids, but we might have some things to work on, and so we could present it to you. If it's fantastic, that would be fantastic to get it great the first time, and everybody's comfortable with it. But then if you need to think about it, or we need to work on some things, we could always bring it back, again too. So trying to just manage my own expectations there, because I do have high hopes that we'll have some good bids come in, but we'll just have to see how everything comes together.
Okay.
I
So-
guess the one thing, not to end on a negative note, but we did put on the intro slide because we were asked to talk about if there's any pricing concerns moving forward. So we did put on the intro slide, if you remember, that tariffs was on the list. So
Yeah.
that's something that's obviously happened since we produced the last number, and we have no idea of the impact on the job. So the market's still digesting that. We do have American iron and steel as a requirement of this project. So at least everything that's
That's
steel
plus.
should not see an impact from it. So
All right.
that's a good portion of what usually sees that type of increase.
So, good. Well, we
Okay.
appreciate you. And we're looking forward to getting this thing done.
Okay, yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, and we have a gap. I didn't roll your meetings together yet because we're adopting those rules tonight. So we'll have a break here. Sorry to get you here too
Rest for
early.
breaks.
Wanted to make sure you had plenty of time, but if you want to adjourn the workshop, then we'll
Yep.
come back at 6.
Workshop is adjourned.